For something as complicated as the brain and as mysterious as mental illnesses, to have hopes of designing precise and specific therapies, you need understanding, you need deep understanding. And that's true no matter what the therapy looks like, whether it's a medicine or a talk therapy or a brain stimulation treatment. And what we're already seeing is that this is happening, that the insights from optogenetics have already helped guide brain stimulation therapies, whether with deep brain electrode stimulation or with external transcranial magnetic stimulation. And the possibilities, we think, will continue to grow from there, even though the main goal of optogenetics is basic science and discovery and understanding. Its influence can extend across different kinds of treatment. It is conceivable that optogenetics could be even used directly, although, as I mentioned, that's by no means the main purpose of optogenetics, which is really a basic science discovery approach. But the key components of optogenetics are, and this is one of the things that's made it relatively easy to adapt and to disseminate, the basic components are relatively straightforward and not too different from things that are already done with human beings. But as I said, that's not the main purpose of optogenetics. Using optogenetics, people have discovered pathways in the brain and phenomena that were surprising and that people didn't know were there. For example, it's been found that buried deep within the amygdala, a part of the brain that's normally associated with fear and anxiety, that deep within it is a pathway that's anti-anxiety, that if you selectively drive this pathway, you can have what we call an anxiolytic effect. And so this is something that could only be resolved with optogenetics with the precision that it gave us to exert specific control over one connection from one part of the structure to another. This is showing up in all kinds of different settings. For example, we're finding that small shifts in excitability of one part of the brain can effectively change how other parts of the brain relate to each other. And so this is a sort of a complex second-order dynamical effect that we can detect with optogenetics. In terms of thinking about a map, which we'd all love to have, the question is what kind of information do you want from the map? And it's nice to see roads and paths, but it's also nice to know a lot more about those roads and paths, who's using them, and what kind of traffic is there along that path at different times, and which traffic matters and which traffic doesn't. And all these things would give you a rich, deep understanding of a map. And absolutely, optogenetics is a big part of that effort to understand what each pathway that we can detect by any means, what its causal implications are, what it means for behavior or for cognition. Well, there are two ways to look at those questions about moods and personality and thoughts. There's the subjective feeling that one has when all those things happen, and then there's the external manifestations of those, behavior. And of course, we can never know what another person is feeling inside, certainly not an animal, but not even another person. Those things will be very difficult to make headway on. But we are already, and many papers have been published on this, we're already using optogenetics, and many labs are doing this, to understand what's causing personality trait-like patterns from one individual to another. What affects motivation, the willingness to work hard to overcome a challenge, to look for a reward, the ability to seek out rewarding or pleasurable stimuli, and all these things that affect human personality traits and motivations. In my laboratory at the moment, we're using optogenetics alongside other exciting new tools. We're developing ways to visualize the traffic along those pathways that I've mentioned, even deep inside the brain of freely behaving animals. And we've described some of those methods which we designed to be compatible with optogenetics and will magnify its explanatory power for brain dynamics. We've also worked on ways of looking at the structure, the fine wiring of the brain in an intact preparation. And again, this was designed to work well with optogenetics, so we can see the paths and not just the traffic, but see the paths themselves and link all those different kinds of data together for deep understanding. Well, I certainly hope nothing is ultimate. We have a long way to go. It's amazing and thrilling what we can do now, but there's so much more we need to discover and so many more tools and technologies we need to build. I hope and think they'll be compatible with what we find with optogenetics, but we need so many new ideas to make all the discoveries we'd like to make about the brain and about mental illness. And in a way, this is just the door cracking open a little bit, and it's exciting to see what's going to happen.